Welcome everyone to this 17th round of World Blitz 2023. We have Magnus Carlsen taking a sip of water against Yu Yangyi. This is going to be a very exciting game. Yu Yangyi looks very serious. He's thinking about what opening he should be trying against Magnus, but Magnus has other things to worry about as well. He's adjusting his pieces. He's on 12 points out of 16. The leader is Artemiev on 12.5. In the background, we see Daniil Dubov taking on Fabiano Caruana. The tournament is very exciting. Let's see how Magnus Carlsen faces this challenge, because Yu Yangyi is an excellent blitz player. Off we go. Magnus opens the game with 1e4. We have e5 and the Petrov. Magnus quickly takes the pawn, and Petrov is a very solid opening, but very quickly Magnus plays h3. Now this is such a rare move. If let's say this position has been reached 75,000 times, this has been played only 25 times. That's how rare it is. And Magnus is literally blitzing out his moves. Yu Yangyi can now retreat his knight to f6, which is a normal square, but he goes back to d6, which has put Magnus under some thought. Now, you can normally play your pawn up and then bring your bishop out and castle, and that would be normal play. But Magnus needs to play for a win here in such a symmetrical position. How does he do that? He goes c4. Very interesting. Because if Yu Yangyi takes here, he can take back, get his bishop out and castle. That's his plan. So taking the pawn might not be the best idea, although it's a very normal move. You can see Yu Yangyi is a little bit uncertain in this new position because he hasn't prepared it at home. That's what Magnus wants to do. He's telling his opponent that we both will play on equal terms in terms of theory, and then I'm the superior player. By the way, Yu Yangyi has taken a very dangerous decision. He's given up a pawn, but essentially he's telling Magnus that your pawns are doubled, and I think I'll get them back later with interest, and then your d3 pawn would be weak. Okay, black castles. Magnus brings his knight. Magnus is like, I'm not going to let go of that pawn now. That's a very precious pawn that I have won in the center of the board. How does black continue? What is his plan to recover this pawn? Yu Yangyi has to answer these questions. He goes b5, answering them. He wants to push the knight. He wants to bring his bishop here, the other knight here, and then win this pawn. That's what he wants to do. Magnus Carlsen now has to fight against these things. He goes a3, bishop comes out, and d4. I really like this move because now you are attacking this pawn twice. Also, you want to get the bishop out to d3. Yu Yangyi saves that pawn. Bishop d3 looks like a normal move, but Magnus goes bishop e2. Knight comes out and he plonks his knight on e5. Of course, you can't take it because that would undouble the pawns. And also, you're looking at the softened c6 square. So Yu Yangyi must remain very careful, because if he goes knight b6, then the bishop comes here, defends it, also prepares the knight jumping into the c6 square. And so he's taking his time. Look at the time difference. He goes bishop f6 here. Now, with bishop f6, the point is you are attacking the knight on e5, but Magnus can now jump into the knight. Look at the time. Magnus had 2 minutes 20 seconds. Now you have to take this knight. So you take it. Pawn takes. Now this knight is attacked. So you defend it. Now, here, let's say Magnus castles. Then he would come knight f5, attacking here. By the way, these are the thoughts that are going in Magnus's head right now. He's thinking about that. You push the pawn. He takes your knight. Pawn takes. Knight takes. Now you will see that he's recovered the pawn and also attacking here. But in comes this beautiful move. And if you take here, I have queen c2, double attacking these two knights. Wow, this is an amazing variation. But look at the time Magnus has taken already. He has actually thought here for close to a minute, because he's unable to decide whether he should play this move. He has to look 10 moves ahead if he wants to make that move, knight c6. That's the huge question. Can he play it? He's now down to 1 minute 20 seconds. That's not normal in a blitz game, that you're thinking for more than 70 seconds. Oh my god. And he goes for it. He goes for the variation that we just analyzed. Now this knight has to be taken. You can't tolerate such a knight on c6. It's a monstrous piece. You have to chop it off. Yu Yangyi is now thinking, now look, Magnus thought for one move for like 70 seconds, but Yu Yangyi is going to bleed on every single move. So even though Magnus is behind on time, he will catch up. Knight b6, he castles. He has these moves prepared. He castles it out, and Yu Yangyi plays knight f5. Now if you play bishop e3, that won't be great, so he pushes his pawn. He pushes his pawn forward, and as we know, these two pawns are extremely strong, so you must take the pawn on d5. That's what you have to do. But you could also take on c3, pawn takes c3, queen takes d5. By the way, didn't we tell you that Magnus's decision of thinking for more time would work out? Look at that. He has 16 more seconds than Yu Yangyi. Now knight d5, this final piece where you play bishop f3 so that you give up this pawn. That's such a smart idea. You can also go bishop g4. Magnus pauses here because he has these two great options in the position. Will he play one of those, or will he go and save the pawn, which is also possible? He goes bishop f3. Brilliant chess. Knight takes c3 is met with queen c2, attacking in double attacking. So you can't do that. Yu Yangyi has to move his knight away, and look at how the position has beautifully opened up for the bishop. Magnus is an artist who has actually made the canvas in his favor now. Bishop f4 attacking here. This is a critical pawn because you take the queen, and then supported by this bishop, this c pawn would become a monster. So Yu Yangyi needs to save it. Maybe rook c8, but that looks terrible. He goes back. But now you take. And if I take with the pawn, pawn pushes, attacks the queen, and I win the rook. So you need to be careful over there by Yu Yangyi. I think Magnus can chop off the knight, but also he can let it be. He can just bring his rook to the open file. Why to take? He can bring his queen up. That's also a good move. But he takes it. He wants clarity. So now the queen has to take. Yes, he takes. Queen takes. Pawn takes. And now rook d1 attacking here. Maybe a better move was to play something else, but rook d1 looks so normal. If you play rook fd8, there is c7 attacking this rook. So you need to bring this rook to d8. And he brings it. He brings this rook to d8. If c7, you can go back and try to win this pawn. But now Magnus's next few moves are simply phenomenal. He's going to, this knight is so much hindering these pawns. He needs to do something about it. Pawn to d5, a4, sacks a pawn. You don't want to be taking with this pawn because then the b file opens up. So he takes c4. What a move. What a move. You can't take here. Knight hangs. So he takes with the d pawn. Rook takes. Rook takes and pawn pushes forward. If you play rook c8, I have rook d1 with a back rank problem. So rook f8, bishop comes in. What chess by Magnus Carlsen? Because if knight here, rook takes a6 and then rook a8, making a queen on the board. So pawn pushes forward. Actually, Yu Yangyi sacrifices an entire rook because he thinks there's a chance that he can actually queen his pawns. If he pushes b4, he pushes because now if you take rook takes a4, then c2, b3, b2 are winning here. Actually, it's a draw. So Magnus can't take the knight. He has 18 seconds to figure out. Yu Yangyi down to 3 seconds. Bishop f5. Such a good move. Holding this diagonal. Knight goes back. But now Magnus attacks the knight. There's simply no way to now hold this position together. And look at how quickly Magnus gets his king in. Pawn pushes forward, but the king is just in time. Yu Yangyi is gone here. The king is on time. He shakes his head. But Magnus has played brilliant chess. What a game of chess this was by Magnus Carlsen. In Blitz chess, he managed to create an absolute masterpiece. It's just 180 seconds, right? 3-minute game. From that, he thinks for 70 seconds for a move. And then he finds these amazing ideas and manages to beat a strong player like Yu Yangyi. And what does Magnus do next? After getting up, he wants to see what's happening on other boards. He first goes to Fabi versus Dubov board, but the most important board is that of Vladislav Artemiev. How is he doing? Because Artemiev is his biggest rival. He's half a point ahead. He sees him fighting against Duda. He assesses the position and then moves out from the door where generally only he goes outside. The other players go to the players' lounge while Magnus goes to his own private lounge. So he moves from here. The team of NRK follows him because there is a live broadcast going on in entire of Norway. Magnus has to move very quickly because if he walks slowly, there are people out there who want his autograph. So he moves very fast, and there you see Rajabo on the right just sitting there, and then Magnus has to move towards his private lounge, moving across all the players. Yu Yangyi there. Ooh, he jumps through. Of course, I'm not going to try that. But let's hear what Magnus had to say about this game after the tournament.
But I really loved the game with Yu Yangyi. I mean, this idea of Rook D4, C4, sorry, first A4, then C4, and you played it without much thought. Like you played it with once. I mean, that was insane.
Yeah, it's quite typical though that when you have this far advanced pass pawn that, yeah, you just have to do everything in order to push it forward. And besides, he hadn't made it luft for his king, which always like tells you that there may be chances for tactics. But I think the thing I was most happy about in that game was early on, when I thought for a long time, like longer than you usually should think in Blitz, and I needed some time to evaluate the position with
Knight C6, right?
yeah, Knight C6, and the position we eventually get with two bishops against two knights. Because at first my thought was, well, that can't be any good. His knights are active and my pawns are weak. But I realized after a while that it was a lot more interesting for white than I thought at first. So I was happy with that. Then later I made a bit of a rash decision to exchange the bishop for the knight. Because I'd only counted on him exchanging the queens when I thought, basically, oh, never mind, I had c7 after,
No,
otherwise.
Yeah, bishop D6, C6,
Yeah, I had
C7.
c7.
Right.
Yeah, never mind that.
No, but queen C7, bishop A8, would that be compensation?
Yeah, some compensation, but still much better for white. Yeah, okay, never mind. I was thinking during the game that he missed a chance by not taking cd6. Because, yeah, then my intuition was right that, of course, that's why I had queen takes d6 in my mind. Yeah, anyway, after that it was all like move by move tactics, but...
AG, what are you doing?
I'm on Wilder.
AG, why are you being so nice to me?
I'm on Wilder.
AG, why should someone be on Wilder?
I'm on Wilder.